Hello, welcome to You Know Something podcast, and I'm Dina.
No, I'm Diana.
Hello, Miss Diana.
Hey, girl. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Last week on our You Know Something episode, we talked about plane crashes and how to survive one,
Yeah.
and whether or not there were more than plane crashes than normal. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it, guys. But I had a note at the bottom of my notes on that episode to ask you something, and we ran out of time. So I wanted to ask you today
Okay.
before we get started. Did you hear the story about the couple who was on a plane and someone passed away on the plane and they put the body next to them?
No.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a little story. And you tell me what you think about it. Okay, it was an Australian couple and they were flying from Melbourne to Doha, which is in Qatar. So they were flying from Melbourne to Qatar, which is a 15-hour flight.
Mm.
And they were like, I think 10 hours in. And this woman went to the restroom. And when she came out of the restroom, she just collapsed onto the aisle, which is so sad, of course. And the crew tried to revive her. There was a doctor on board that tried to revive her, and they just couldn't do it. So their policy is to move the body to, an empty area of the plane if possible.
Sure.
And so they got her into a wheelchair, but the wheelchair wouldn't fit up into the empty front section of the plane. So they were struggling with her. I think they got her like halfway into the chair and they couldn't get her all the way in. They were all struggling. So this couple was seated like the woman was in the middle and the man was at the window.
Hmm.
So there was the aisle seat and they just took her body and put it in that seat because they just could not carry her any further and put a blanket over her head. Now, there were other empty rows to that plane, but they just couldn't move her any further. So they put her beside this woman. Well, this woman was freaking out. Like, I've got to go 5 more hours next to a deceased person. And you're a medical professional. I had to look it up, but the body goes through changes in a 5 hour period.
Hmm. Not good ones either.
No. I mean, like visual changes.
Certainly. So I would have thought, why would you not move the other couple if you couldn't get the lady any further? Move that couple to the aisles that were empty, that were away from the body to just give reverence, especially to the body, but
Yeah.
also to those, those people that some people that may not bother, but yeah, that's a story I had not heard. Thank you for sharing.
Isn't it lovely? Well,
Yeah.
this other woman said, "Come sit by me," to this woman who was in the middle, the wife. And I don't
Yes.
know, did she climb over the person, the deceased? Did she climb over the seat to the back? I don't know, but she got out of there. But the husband was seated next to the window, so there was one seat space in between them. I saw a photo of it.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if if that had happened to you, because you have been around people who have passed in the hospital, would that bother you? Would that be like
It
to
would
ride
not
five
bother.
hours?
It would not bother me. However, you are correct. I've had a lot of exposure to that, and again, not to negate death and mortality, I guess you'd say. Um, it is one of those things that you begin to get comfortable with more exposure, but I would not expect an average layperson to be comfortable with someone that's passed away for 5 hours beside them. I think that's asking too much.
It is because you do have rigor mortis that will set in and shifts in I mean, movement. You can have movement, right? And
Yeah, your body
sounds.
is going to shift. Yeah, the fluids in your body it's not going to be a good thing. I
Yeah.
would step it up if the pilot could.
You just speed it up there.
Speed it up there, dude.
I mean, I don't know what you do on a plane flight, especially a 5 hour one. I would be on my phone playing games or watching a movie, and I just would feel weird doing that next to someone who I had seen 5 minutes before walking down the aisle. I mean, whew,
That's
what an
true.
awful situation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right. Do you know who Jeff Bezos is?
I do.
Okay. The probably just CEO now. Originally, he was the owner of Amazon, but I bet you he's a figurehead and stockholder now. I don't know. But he was recently married.
Good for him.
Yeah. And he was married for years, when he was starting out, the person that starts out with you when you're not a billionaire.
Right.
And then you become a billionaire. And maybe you're a little short and a little bald and a little pudgy when you meet your first wife. He had like a glow up, and started working out and probably taking some kind of hormones to allegedly to look a little more buff and divorced his wife, or they divorced. I don't know who decided to divorce who, but she got a
Right.
good little settlement, as you can
I'd
imagine.
say.
Yeah. And then he married a former news anchor, Lauren Sanchez, and they are very I don't know what you would say, glamorous maybe in the way she dresses. And you would have made a lot of money off her. And if people don't know, your first time listening, Diana is an injectable nurse and can make you look like a new person. And let's just say she has invested in quite a bit of fillers and Botox and surgeries and things.
A little bit to enhance herself, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But when they got married, I don't know it's probably last week, a couple weeks ago, it was a big to-do in Italy with
Sure.
celebrities. And oh, we saw Oprah, we saw Tom Brady, the Kardashians,
Wow.
um, Sydney Sweeney, who's an actress. Okay, I'm gonna give you a few statistics about his wedding and then ask you a question.
Hey,
Now, they have disputed these numbers. So if you want to cut them in half in your mind as I say them, you can to be fair to them.
okay.
According to this article, their wedding in Venice is estimated to have cost between 46.5 million and 55.6 million dollars.
Okay, just to start with that.
Her dress cost over $300,000. And she had like three changes, so I don't know about the other two dresses, but she changed out, for the reception and a party or whatever, I guess. The hotel they rented for their guests was about $900,000. Are you cutting everything in half? I know you're a good math person.
I'm working on it.
Catering, you don't have to total it. Catering was $1.1 million. They used water taxis since it was in Venice, and that was about $270,000 to rent those.
Mm.
The pastries, and they gave little party favors, were Murano glass party favors, was over $150,000. Security was $2 to $3 million. And then they had entertainment. They had a wedding singer, but the wedding singer happened to be Elton John and Lady Gaga. That was about $8 million. Okay, so that's it. Now, my question is
How
to
about
you.
flowers
Oh,
and
yeah, they didn't even talk about the flowers. My gosh, that's one of the most expensive things.
you would think.
Yeah. So some celebrities came out who were not invited to the wedding. One of them was Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay.
They left her out. And she
Mhm.
she said, among other things, the Bezos wedding, quote, it turned my stomach seeing all these billionaires gathering in the gross excess of it all, the show of it. Is Oprah friends with Jeff Bezos? Really? How is that possible? He treats his employees with disdain. By any metric, he is not a nice man. And his fake wife, the fembot, who looks like that? Why would he choose her after the salt of the earth, his wife, Mackenzie? He sold his soul, is what it looks like from here. The devil is smiling at all his conquests. How do you feel about that?
I just don't sling mud. I just don't believe in judgment of others and how they choose to spend their money. Um, my choice would not be that extravagant. There's so many, I feel like animals that could be helped, people that could be helped, children with the excessive money that was spent on a wedding that lasted, oh goodness, obviously less than 8 hours, people do tend to go overboard when they have more, but it doesn't mean that that's a good way to spend our money resources.
Okay, I'd agree with what you're saying on both points. I am, I get angry when I hear people say somebody is too rich and they tell people how they should spend their money. It's nobody's business how somebody else spends their money. I mean, you can have an opinion and say, ooh, that's gross, and he could have done this just like you did. But to be so angry and obsessed with it and make a public statement about it, we don't know what Jeff Bezos gives to charity, but I bet you it's a whole lot, if even if it's for tax purposes
Correct. I
and
would agree with
research.
that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
people do
Hmm.
not know what, and who's to say what is too rich? Who's to say, I mean, there's somebody somewhere who thinks your house is too big or too fancy,
That's right.
and
Absolutely.
and then you may see a house and think, that's too big. You know, who's to say? I worked for a lot of people with big houses when I was a house sitter and a pet sitter, and
Hmm.
it never occurred to me like, what do you need 9 bathrooms for? It didn't, I mean, I was kind of like, wow, 9 bathrooms. I'm glad I don't have to clean 9 bathrooms. But it's none of my business how somebody chooses to use their money.
It is not. And once we get to that realization that we probably need to pay more attention to how we're spending our own money, are our credit cards paid off?
Yeah,
Are we living
exactly.
paycheck to paycheck? Put your mind and your energy and your effort on your own finances and leave everybody else's alone. So, yeah, I don't agree with Rosie O'Donnell coming out being negative like that. And most of that sounds like maybe she was feeling like she, as you said, was left out.
Yeah. And I guarantee there's a lot of people somewhere who would say Rosie O'Donnell is too rich. I mean, she
That's
was.
exactly right. I was about to say the same thing.
And then Charlize Theron, who I really like as an actress, I was disappointed to see this. I don't really care what Rosie O'Donnell thinks, but she said, I think we might be the only people who did not get an invite to the Bezos wedding. Now, this is when she was like in an award show or something. And she said, but that's okay because they suck and we are cool.
Ooh, and Charlene said that? Or
Yeah.
Charlize?
Charlize, yeah. We know she's not
Charlize.
jealous. You know, I was thinking maybe Rosie O'Donnell is jealous, but I don't think Charlize would be jealous of the wedding. And Mia Farrow, she made comments too. So it could be they liked his first wife and maybe he hurt her. I don't know, but I am very strong, especially in this country where you're free to be as successful as you want with luck and hard work and everything falling into a line.
Yeah, I agree.
So maybe just use rich people as an example of, I'm going to figure out how they did that if that's your goal to be quote rich, you know?
And we all have our own definition of what rich is.
Exactly. Now, if I loan somebody some money and I see them spending on something stupid, I might have an opinion.
And that's your business because you have loaned them money with the intent, I'm sure, that they would use that wisely and not go off and do something stupid with it.
Yeah, exactly. They say you should never loan money to somebody you know with the expectation that they'll pay you back, you know. Just give it to them and don't expect.
Yeah. And maybe sometime when you're in need, they'll pay you back.
Exactly. This topic, I don't know. I'm hoping I know how you'll answer it because if I get it wrong, that means I have committed a big faux pas in your house when I was house sitting many times. So I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
Is it a shoes off rule at your house?
Yes, because right at the moment we have a lot of red mud around our house. They're doing the landscaping. And so I have a little husky who comes in with her feet, but then I also have a husband who comes in from working and his red dirt on his shoes. So, yes, I like to keep the floors clean. And so I would like people to take their shoes off before they come in. If you have red mud on them. If you don't, I don't care.
I did not know that.
That's where the red mud came in. Okay, now I get it.
Well, Diana has white marble floors. So
Right.
it
So it's
shows.
everything.
Well, I read a lot about it because what about growing up? Was your house a no shoes house?
Pretty much. Yes. My mom was a meticulous housekeeper.
Well, I thought I was going to have to give you all these statistics and convince you that you need to take your shoes off for various reasons, but I don't because you already do that. Now, our house, we did not do that, and I ran in and out, but in the summertime, especially, it was not an issue. I had my shoes on in the house because I never wore shoes during the summer. I was barefoot going out and barefoot going in. That kind of defeats the purpose. Well, it's funny because I was reading an article and looking at comments underneath, and there were people from other countries, Europe and even Canada, saying, "How in the world could you possibly wear a shoe inside a house? That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard." And I have never experienced that until I started working in rich people houses. Back to our other topic. But
Gotcha.
yeah. But for those who do not do this, it is true, and you do it for like because your area's under construction. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But Gabriel Fipalelli,
I'm glad you're saying that, not me.
I'm not sure I said it right. I'll include a link, folks. He's the professor of the Department of Earth Sciences at Indiana University. He says bacteria, bacteria, bacteria. We can track in all sorts of bacteria, but certainly some of the ones we're most concerned about are E. coli that can cause severe abdominal cramps, bloody diarrhea, and vomiting. There's been studies that the swab of the bottom of a shoe is something like 99% of the shoes tested positive for fecal matter.
Mm. Oh my goodness.
I know. It's probably a lot like dog poo, I would
It
think.
is. Yes.
Depending on where you live, I think there are some cities where people poo on the sidewalk, but not in
I
our
don't. I don't want to move there.
area. However, bacteria is not the only danger that rides along with the dust and dirt. It's also studies have shown that in urban areas where there are older homes, lead and dust can be tracked into homes on the surface of the shoes. Other studies have shown the pesticide in your yards and gardens that you might walk through during the day, public areas where they probably spray a lot, will bring pesticides into your house.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you think about, especially if you had a baby crawling around,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
or kids who I kind of like to sit on the floor sometimes. I'll play with my dog on the floor or lay on the floor and watch television sometimes.
Yeah, me too. I
Yeah,
get down on her little level, and she loves it.
exactly. So, how do we ask others? I experienced this. I went to a like a home product party. Somebody was selling, I forget the company name, doesn't matter, but you sell products in your house to your friends and serve drinks or whatever. So I went to this house and got to the door and she said, "I'm sorry, everybody's got to take their shoes off." Well, I was freaking out because we were dressed up coming to a luncheon and
Yeah.
she said, "You got to take your shoes off." And I realized that I had holes in my socks. And I wore them because they were thin enough to fit in for my boots. It didn't feel too crammed in there with thick socks. So I
I
thought,
understand.
these are thin,
Yes.
but there's holes in them. So I was mortified that I had to walk in, had a nice outfit on, but I had my toes sticking through the end of my sock. So they say if you're going to require people to take their shoes off, you need to have facilitate booties or slippers or other socks. And how do you feel about that?
I think that's fine. I wouldn't have a problem with someone. I think the way you go about it, where you said the lady opened the door and said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to remove your shoes." Anytime you start with, "I'm sorry," it's almost like you're obviously apologizing for what you're about to ask that person to do. And it means that you feel bad about it. So my take would be when I open the door to be happy to greet them, and I try to keep everything germ free or dirt free, whatever you want to call it. So if you don't mind, I've got these booties here and they are so soft and you're going to love them and you can keep them and we'll just pick your shoes right up as you leave. And I
Yeah.
would do it that way.
Yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. I never thought about it. If you're saying I'm sorry before someone, every time someone comes in for a party or whatever, then you should have planned ahead if you were going to have to
Yes.
apologize. Now, if you threw a party in your house now, are you going to ask people to take their shoes off?
I hadn't really ever thought about the amount of crud that can be brought in on the shoes, but if I have a party now, I'm definitely going to ask people to take their shoes off.
You need to provide some little, they make those booties you can order that go over, like, when some
Oh,
repairman
super
comes in your
cute.
house, those little
They're
blue.
super, yeah, well, but they do make super cute ones. Just look on Amazon. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're going to offer booties and ask people to remove their shoes, we got to have cute booties.
Yeah, there you go. Or you can just have like the little, I guess they use in the medical profession, don't they? Put them like in surgery, you put them over your shoe.
Yeah. Yeah, those are uncomfortable.
Are they?
And they're really meant to go over the shoe.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can put them over the shoes. Well, there's also something to consider in that floors, if you're having a party, people who wear heels are might make little dimples in your wooden floor,
Correct.
or scratch and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, you love your heels, so if I invited you to a fancy party at my house, which it would never be fancy at my house, and ask you to take your shoes off, number one, you're going to be like a foot shorter immediately.
You could have gone all day without saying that. I
Just
would
means you wear
gladly,
high heels.
I would gladly take off my shoes. I,
Okay.
I try to keep the peace, keep everybody happy. But I see no reason to not ask people to do that, but don't apologize for asking.
Yeah. This is the polite, civilized way to have a home without shoe wearers. The first thing you do is you communicate it clearly. Let your guests know in advance, like if you're sending them an invitation to a party, that
Mhm.
we do have a no shoe policy. And, like you said, booties will be provided, or make sure you get a good pedicure and don't have holes in your socks before you come.
See, that's funny. That's a way to present the information, but it doesn't put those people on the defensive.
Right, right. And it says you can also offer, like, a little. I did go to a home one time that had a box of, they were socks, like regular little footy socks, but they just washed them, of course, and then put them out in a little shoe box at the door. And of course, they told me they're clean. I promise they're clean. I just rewash them after people wear them. I think you could just say, take them with you if you want.
Absolutely, yes. Take them with you.
Create a designated area. If someone walks in, and I'm not talking about like someone comes to repair your air conditioner or whatever, I'm talking about you have invited people over, they need a bench or something to sit. I mean, you can imagine hopping around trying to get your tennis shoe
Yeah,
off, or
absolutely.
so a nice little bench, little area for taking your shoes off. And I did go into a home one time. I was being interviewed for a long home sitting assignment, a very nice house, and it was snowing, so I had to walk through snow from the car. And I could say she didn't shovel a sidewalk for me to walk on, so that was kind of rude. But this home was like she auctioned off a tour of her home for charity events every year in her gardens. That's how nice this house was. So I had
Wow.
snow on my shoes and I kind of banged them on the edge of her porch, and I got up to the top and started to walk in, and she said, "Oh, no, you have to take your shoes off." And I said, "Okay." So I'm standing there hopping around trying to get my snow boots on. And look, and she said, "What do you think that bench over there is for?" I said, "Oh, to sit down." Now, that was not the polite, correct, civilized way to tell me that there was a bench available to take my shoes off.
I still would have liked to seen you hopping around.
I did not get the job. I did not.
Oh no.
And this is really important. I hadn't thought about. No, you're having a nice fancy party. You are dressed to the nines like you always are. You have to have your shoes off too when you answer the door.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, of
Okay.
course. Absolutely. I'd have
Okay.
my sexy little booties on.
I want to see these sexy booties.
Okay.
There were some people in the comments that said they feel like feet are more disgusting than shoes, and I would not want someone's feet walking around on my floor and my carpet. So
Yeah.
you just got to assume that their feet are clean, I guess.
I was going to say that would be a subject probably for next time. Because that's probably a lot we could talk about there too.
About dirty feet. Tia and I years ago now, it might have been like our second or third episode. It was all about feet. So we did learn about. Every time I think of a topic, I think that'd be a funny. I thought, no, we already did that. We already did that. And of course, when I told her our topic today is feet, she was like, "What in the world?"
Ah, hi, Miss Tia. I missed you.
How do you think about feet? Do feet gross you out? Or are they like, you think they're really cute? Are you somewhere down the middle of the road? Are you
they,
indifferent to feet?
they don't disgust me.
They don't disgust you. Okay. I'm kind of
Are you
indifferent
there?
to feet.
Yeah.
I don't love them, don't hate them. I like what they do. I appreciate them.
Yeah, they have a function.
Definitely.
And um, there are people who have pretty hands, and then there are people who have not so pretty hands. But um, feet serve a purpose, and I've never saw a pair of feet that I thought were just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Some people think they're really, but my sister has pretty feet, I will say. But I'm kind of getting off topic, but I'm saying it only to say if you see you're surrounded by bare feet at a party, people are holding cocktail drinks, but their bare toes are showing. It's kind of a funny visual to think
That
about.
that is, I've never been to a party like that, so that would be interesting.
A gala with bare feet.
Why don't you throw us a gala, Dina? You can invite all of our listeners,
There you
and
go. Oh, Lord.
they could come from Switzerland and everywhere
Yeah,
else.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, we did chart in Switzerland for, I believe it's the first time. So thank you, Swiss. The Swiss. We love your chocolate. I love your hot
Mhm.
chocolate
Oh yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
and your cheese.
Oh yes.
Okay, finally, we're running out of time. Finally, there is an article and research states that mothers will live longer if they just hear from you on the phone or you visit them or you check on them. They will live longer.
Wow.
I know your mommy's in heaven. I'm still lucky enough to have my mom here. I was getting my eyes checked yesterday and was in the waiting room with an elderly man. He told me he was 95. It was hard to believe. And, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Well, it's really been hot. Yeah. And the next thing he said was, I'm so lonely.
Mm.
I have 4 kids who are successful. They live all over the country. I sacrificed everything to raise them, and I don't regret it. And I think they all turned out great. They never call me. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then I saw
Wow.
that article. I know.
And
Just
the fact that he brought that up to you just sitting there.
exactly. Like the third thought
Ima-
was mine. Ugh,
yeah, imagine how that weighs on that gentleman. That makes me sad.
I know.
I was talk to my mom usually every day on the phone, sometimes twice a day.
Oh,
So
really?
I do encourage people. And if you have a little rift in the relationship with your mom, no matter who's right or who's wrong, she'll be your mom. And sometimes it's nice to let them know that we understand they're not perfect either. And they made the best decisions they could at the time based on what they, had to offer, meaning the type of home that they could provide for this person who should be calling them back, saying thank you and I love you and checking on them. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you had just a horrible, mothers are just people. They're not perfect.
Right.
They could be downright awful, and they could make your blood pressure go up when you talk to them. And you've gone all day, you've worked, you've come home, you're dealing with your children and making dinner and all that, and you think, I should call my mom. But Lord, she'll talk and talk and talk, or I just want to lay down, or I've been listening to people talk all day. It's the last thing I want to do. And I used to tell someone in my life I was in a relationship with whose mother made him nuts. He would say, I just don't think I can do it. She's going to cry and tell me how I never call her. And I said, well, think about this. If you call her, get through that big long one, then you call her again next week or in a few days or whatever, and she knows that call's coming. She's not going to go through all those dramatics. It's going to be casual, what she did today, lighthearted conversation, a short conversation. She may even be like, "Why are you calling me so much?" If you can just hit the bullet and
Right.
get through that dramatic call that's going to last forever and
Yeah.
dramatic. And like you said, even if it's like a mom that, maybe you feel like ruined your childhood or affected you and you're in therapy over it. And I guess if you want her to live longer, maybe you don't. But if you do, just checking in, just wanted to tell you I love you. Maybe you'll get lucky and get the voicemail instead of the actual person. But
Exactly. And I'm not a parent, but I know what it meant to my mom. So I think it's a great idea.
I do too. And I just thought it was interesting that it has scientifically been proven. I don't have the statistics in front of me, and I should. And I'll include a link about how much longer. I think it was like 5 to 7 years. Someone, and I'm not talking about living
Really?
with them or caring for them or making their food. I'm talking about just communicating with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty, I wonder who thought to do that type of a study.
I don't know. I wonder if it was like a greeting card company at Mother's Day or something. But I mean, I would think that would be the same for your dad too, a dad. But
Yeah, of course. I agree.
maybe men are more independent and don't need that emotional contact like women.
Maybe not as much, but I still think dads like to hear from their children just to say hi from time to time and check in.
Yeah. Yeah. You just want to know you're cared about.
Yeah, on both ways. And I mean, truly, the phone line does go both ways.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and if they're calling you, answer it maybe.
Right. Because if not, they're going to keep calling you, I
That's
promise.
true. It's true.
That is
Think
not your
about,
answer.
neither you or I had, I mean, you have stepkids, of course, had kids, and you think about how you give everything, you feel like I sacrificed everything then, but it is your job to let your kids go.
Correct.
But it's nice to know that they think of you and you're appreciated. But I came home and told my mom about the man at the eye doctor, and she said, "Well, you know what? That was his job to provide, take care, and help them get on their way. And they really don't owe him attention." I disagree with her, but I thought that was an interesting perspective too, that she didn't feel like they
Hmm.
have to call you.
Yeah, I disagree with that as well.
All right, and one final thing to remember is that your parents, this is their first time on earth too. You feel like your parents are experienced and have lived a life and they should know better. But this is their first time. I don't believe in reincarnation. It's their first time for everything, just like you.
Grace goes both ways.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Dana, I appreciate you joining me. I know that you had a really busy day and weren't feeling your greatest. And sometimes
Hey,
we
just
kind of
talking to you has made my day even better.
Oh, you're sweet. We talk about how, and on Sundays we have a show called Giggles and Gratitude where we focus on our faith and what inspired us during the week, and what we're grateful for, and what made us giggle. And we talk about often how the hoops we jump through to be here sometimes are kind of comical, the things that happen. Like, I can't
Yeah,
do it right now
and
because
we can you imagine how we would mess it up if we actually tried? We have all these things happen to us and we don't even try. It
yeah.
happens itself.
Yeah, we always say like the devil's at work, but we're going to do it anyway. Satan,
That's
not
right.
today, Satan. All right,
Not
we're running out of
today.
time. Thank you so much, Dinah. Is there any way you want to sum up today's show? Anything that's you thought about? I always like to put you on the spot or
Well, I'm just going to tell you, Dina, that I always appreciate all of the information that you do research on in order to do our show and to make it interesting for not only our listeners, but also for me. I always learn something, and I appreciate you.
well, I always appreciate your thoughtful comments. You always say something that I didn't think of, and you always do give grace. I mean, you state your true opinion. You don't just say whatever you think I want to hear or what you think the positive thing is. I think you're very honest and you make me think too. So I'm glad to be partnered with you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we appreciate you guys joining us. We hope we maybe you're doing a chore, maybe you're driving, Maybe you're just relaxing. We hope we maybe taught you something and maybe entertained you and made you think. And maybe if you're lucky enough to have your mom or dad around, you'll give them a call today. All right. Thank you, Diana. I love you. Bye bye.
Okay, love you guys. Bye bye.